Good afternoon. I'm Council Member Marquise Harris-Dawson. I'll be chairing today's proceedings as Councilman Huizar is out this afternoon. The purpose of the meeting is to make planning and land use recommendations on projects that require council approval. Joined today by Council Members Cedillo, Englander, and Fuentes, as well as our planning department staff, who's led by Michael LeGrand, and we have folks from the Chief Legislative Analyst Office, the City Clerk's Office, and the City Attorney's Office. A few housekeeping items. For each item, we'll begin with a report from the Planning Department, followed by public comment. If you wish to speak on an item, please submit a card. Fill out a speaker call and submit it to the clerk, who's on my left. Applicants and appellants who wish to speak will be given 5 minutes each, and we'll grant 1 minute for all other speakers. And so we'll begin the meeting with a report from the Planning Department, if there's such a report.
Sure. Councilman, I'll call out the item. Item 1 is a Planning Department report. It's a general plan amendment to correct the land use designation and the zoning. I believe there's an issue as to the noticing of the property address, but planning staff is present as well.
Good afternoon, council members. Craig Weber, city planning staff. The department regularly or somewhat regularly prepares corrections pertaining to either general plan amendments and or zone changes when there's clear evidence that an error was made in a previous mapping activity. And so these will come before your committee with some regularity. In this case, we are looking at a piece of property that is in private ownership that was mistakenly picked up during the 2004 Silver Lake Echo Park Elysian Valley Community Plan and designated as part of open space with an OS or open space zone. This is a designation that applies only for publicly owned property that's used either in an open space conservation area or for a park. It creates a significant legal issue for us when private property is zoned for open space because there's so very little that one can do with an open space designation. The property is improved with manufacturing uses. The property owner has the intent to use the property for manufacturing in the future, so this really is a correction. There has been some confusion or misunderstanding in the community as to what properties are specifically involved here. There are various properties that have been pledged to the city for an expansion of the Marsh Park, which is there right now. This is not that property, and so we would recommend approval of the correction. I'm not clear what the nature of the noticing issue is, however.
Sure. My understanding was that for noticing purposes, the address listed was incorrect. Does the clerk have any further information?
The record that was submitted was 2917, but there's been the correction that the actual address is 2971.
Okay.
I see.
So it was inadvertently.
Okay.
Yes, the city attorney here. So my recommendation is that because there is an incorrect address, that we continue the item, we renotice everything to, clarify the Brown Act notice, and I guess you can clear up your ordinance to make sure the correct address is in there if that's not already the case.
Okay.
So the action council. Oh, sorry. You have speakers cards.
So we have speaker cards on this matter.
You can ask the speakers if they still want to comment or if they would like to comment when the item is heard next week.
Okay, so this item will be heard next week once the administrative changes made. So I have a number of speaker cards here. If folks still want to speak today, we want to allow time for them to do that, but folks should know that it'll be heard again in a week.
Yes, Councilman. So the request is to continue it to the next week's meeting.
Yes.
So that's the action.
So, okay, so I'm going to go through these names. Carrie Sutkin, Doug Haynes, Damian Rebeldo. All right, come on up. If I call your name and you want to speak, come on up.
Good Good afternoon. My name is Carrie Sudkin. I live on Gatewood Street. That's not immediately adjacent to this site, but this is my morning walk and my weekend walk, and I was disappointed that Marsh Street Park is beautiful, but it's operating in 3 separate parcels, and it's not all connected yet, which I think also makes it difficult for the city and the agencies out there in terms of lighting and security. But what I'd like to mention to you now, because this is one of the strange parcels that are coming in, not part of the Rio, overlay zone, because there's no design guidelines for that yet. And the owner of this property is very active on the LA River Revitalization Board. And it's right on the river. I think that's why the city zoned it open space and changed the general plan. It's hard to see that would have been an error. It's right on the LA River, and this property has actually built on the river, not just their their wall, but they're just abutting all over. And this is a part of the river where the bike path is only so wide, and the community needs a pedestrian path as well. So I would urge you to look at these kind of conditions, queue conditions, as part of what the city really needs out there. If the Public Works Department could look at this and say, yes, we really need to extend the pedestrian path there, and here's an opportunity to push this property back and ask for that.
Thank you.
You got your finger on that. Hi, my name's Doug Haynes, and I want to just talk about some procedural issues. First off, the agenda falsely states that there is a report on this matter from the City Planning Commission. There isn't. There's been no consideration of this issue by the Commission. Commission staff were, in fact, asked by Craig Weber to submit the transmittal. No hearings before have been conducted on this general plan amendment. Also, the agenda address is misleading. It's not just 297 in Partridge, it's actually 2993 Alessandra. It's a 1.3 acre parcel of prime riverfront property that in 2004 was committed as a future park by Morton Lacretz. The community plan clearly listed the site as open space, both in the matrix and the map, and the M&D studied it as open space. So it needs to be studied again, and the M&D was incorrect. Also, the owner is a very savvy billionaire businessman who owns the Crossroads of the World. This is not a mistake on their part. This land is now far more valuable than it was in 2004. The only correction is that they now want the land for its market value back and for development on the riverfront property. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Damian Robledo. I'm a business owner, artist, and board member on the Legion Valley Arts Collective. I speak today on behalf of myself. The Lacretz family has had a history of philanthropy and environmentally conscious development. Their work with Tree People, the UCLA Institute of Environment, the Green Tech Campus, and I want to quote Mort Lacretz: long before the environment was such an issue, I believed in conserving and reusing. I should also say, in fair disclosure, that I've supported 2 of Lacretz projects, one the LA River Bridge in North Atwater, as well as a small lot development also in North Atwater. However, on this, I wind up on the other side with the Lacretz development group. This is setting this upzoning is setting a precedent that we should look into. The fact that there isn't a community impact report is of great concern, and this needs to be opened up with more transparency to the community of Elysian Valley. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kevin Mulkey.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Mulcahy. I think you've heard quite a bit of important input here. I guess this is an advocacy for Craig to really disclose what the clear evidence is, because I think that'll go an awful long way in advance of next week's hearing. So if everybody can have information to be basing sort of judgments on, that would be terrific. And in advance would be much, much preferred to right here on Thursday afternoon. Thank you.
Excellent. Mr. David Modern.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is David Modern. Given the increase in property value, it is somewhat hard to believe that this could just be an administrative error and should just be corrected for that reason. and given the long-standing open space designation and the importance of open space as identified in the LA River Master Plan in the river restoration and revitalization, it is important that this proposed zone change be afforded the customary public notice and hearing process, even if, as the staff report indicates, the change is being made to correct a prior error in the community plan update. Thank you.
Ms. Elizabeth Camacho.
Good afternoon, Elizabeth Camacho. I represent the property owner for the site that is the subject of the proposed rezoning, and I just wanted to speak briefly in light of the comments to provide some information that may help clarify the history a little here. The reason that there is open space zoning for the properties at the terminus of Marsh Street here in this area is because a few years prior to the general plan amendment that imposed this open space designation, there was a conveyance of property in that area from private ownership to the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority, the MRCA, which is a joint powers authority, governmental agency, and they purchased it with the intention of developing it into Marsh Park. And that is a process that the MRCA continues to pursue. Some portions of the park have been developed. It's my understanding there are some portions that are still in industrial use and have not yet been converted, but those portions are owned by the MRCA. The land that was intended to be designated as open space was intended to be open space because of this conveyance. The property that's the subject before you now was never owned by the MRCA or conveyed to the MRCA, and it's always been in private ownership, hence the nature of the error. So I hope that's helpful to you, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
So that concludes the speaker cards that we have on this matter.
So the action councilman recommended is that you continue the item to the next plum committee meeting.
That's right.
Maybe you should request a vote from your colleagues.
Councilman, I think that the testimony today was taken as a courtesy. The notice today was improper because it was the wrong address. So we're going to correct the address, but you still have to have public testimony at the next meeting after the correct Brown Act notice is given. So you should probably take a vote now as to whether to continue the matter.
So we have a motion. Opposition?
But Councilman, there seems to be an individual who indicates she submitted a card and has not been given the opportunity to speak.
All right.
So,
Mr. Mejia,
if the speaker would like to approach the podium and speak.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. I handed it in to the gentleman who was collecting them. My name is Tracy Stone, and I live up the street at 2041 Blake Avenue. And I just wanted to make a comment that the resolution refers to an amendment, and the amendment states that the zone will be commercial manufacturing. However, your agenda says that the zone will be QCM-1VL Rio, and the Q condition overlay is an important part of this. The City Planning Department has been working quite hard on these Q conditions, and I think it would be a shame for the Q not to apply to this should the rezone go ahead. So I just wanted to urge you to clarify that matter, that it will be a QCM if you do rezone it.
Yes, my reading of it and looking at the agenda is that the permanent Q is listed.
Yeah, it's on the agenda, but the resolution, the resolution says it will be zoned per the map, and the map does not say Q.
So the map is incorrect, and the planning department needs to prepare a revised map.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor.
Yes, to continue it to next week, and also instruct planning to prepare the revised map reflecting the Q condition.
All right. Any opposition? Hearing none, that's moved. Mr. Mejia, can you read item number 2 into the...
Sure, Councilman. Item 2 is an appeal filed by Deborah Francisco and William Larson. They're appealing the action of the City Planning Commission as it relates to a site plan review and a zoning administrator's adjustment for a 73 single-family dwelling on 73 separate lots in CD 12.
All right, I have speaker cards from the appellant, Deborah Francisco. Or am I hearing from planning first?
Councilman, the planning department typically presents the report.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Councilman. Tom Glick, City Planning Department, Valley District Office. I'm going to start and back up and say when I got this case, it was one of those cases that everybody in the office said, oh, you don't want to do this case. This is one of those that's just going to be an awful case to do. But in reality, I held a public hearing and I found that the applicant had done 25 outreach meetings and worked with the council office and worked with the community to essentially get a project that was happy and what the community really wanted. 73 units designed and functions the way the community supported it. And it was a pleasure, and some of the community members are here in support of this project. They've also filed an appeal because they didn't like one thing that City Planning Commission did, which was to put see-through walls on Chase Street. But that's the only thing they didn't like. The community came out and completely supported a 73-unit development on a vacant lot in North Hills across from the Anheuser-Busch plant. And it was a pleasure to work with the applicant, to work with the community, to work with the council office on getting this project through commission to this body today. So that's all I have to say. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Councilman, the appellants may wish to approach the podium.
All right, so we have Deborah Francisco.
Good afternoon, council members, and thank you. My name is Deborah Francisco. The appeal is a very straightforward one. A large number of residents worked for nearly 2 years with Borstein Enterprises on the nature and details of the project, resulting in a mutual collaboration and absolute concurrence when it entered the City Planning Commission hearing. The City Planning Commission approved most of the proposed project, however, adding 2 conditions that change a very integral component, that being the design of the exterior walls along Woodley Avenue and Chase Street, respectively. During collaboration with the developer, there was a great deal of discussion related to the nature of these walls, and the neighborhood concluded perimeter walls must be uniform and full height to provide consistent landscaping between the public right-of-way and the perimeter walls. It is of concern, based on other community experience, the transparency requested by the City Planning Commission within the Woodley and Chase walls will lead to our new neighbors in an attempt to create rear yard privacy to fill these areas with a series of random materials, leading to an aesthetically inconsistent appearance, distracting from an otherwise expertly conceived landscape and exterior design. Everyone has been in agreement on the exterior design before the Planning Commission made the change. Not only was it attractive, but also provided much needed security and noise mitigation for the residents, as Woodley and Chase are both heavily traveled streets. Fixing this issue is quite a simple one. We respectfully request that conditions B.4.B.2, page C2, and B.5.D.2, page C3, that were added by the City Planning Commission be deleted from their actions. As to the appeal that is filed by Mr. Larson, we respectively strongly disagree. We believe that it will, for the conditions here, it will believe that 73 single-family homes on individual lots will be attractive, landscape, community consistent design, provides a secure, beautifully designed neighborhood with individual yards and common open space. A traffic signal will be installed by the developer at the Woodley Avenue entrance and Woodley Place. Borstein Enterprises has worked hand in hand with our community and accommodated all of our concerns, and it has been a pleasure working with them. Thank you.
Thank you. In half the time. William Larson, applicant.
Good afternoon. I actually just flew back this morning from Finland just for this hearing. Personally, the problem that this entire property is near the Budweiser Brewery, And for years, it's been a vacant lot because they originally took some of the homes, they purchased them, this is almost 25, 35 years ago. And they were, I guess, going to do some kind of an expansion, but they never did. We got along with Budweiser for a long time. They have been using part of this property for their trucks and no issues. And now they've sold this property. They always were telling us, hey, you know, we don't want to cause any problems with the community. But now the issue that I have with this is, first of all, there was no, my mother lives adjacent to it and I live there part-time. I've been living in this area on and off for the last 30, 40 years. There's been no notice of the EIR that we received of this, and this whole thing has been kind of spread apart because there's a separate hearing that's going on with the zoning. They're asking for a zone change to R6. So it's kind of confusing that you have one case involving the zoning, you have another case involving the EIR, and you have this case involving the project itself. It would seem more logical to me that everything would be consolidated into one hearing rather than doing everything separately. But the issues that I have with this is, first of all, as to the zoning change, which I know is not here, but still giving them an R6 zone, they're going to be able to do, we're going to have a problem with sober livings at boarding houses. And I think the one way that this could be addressed, possibly if they were willing to do an amendment into their CC&Rs that would prevent somebody from doing this, because this area's had nothing but troubles with sober livings. Myself, I was attacked by someone who came out of a boarding house. I was almost killed a couple of years ago at a property right near this area. And it was by a guy coming out of a somewhat sober living place. So I'm speaking from personal experience. This isn't just baloney that I'm bringing up, as some other people have accused me of. The other issue that I have is about the construction. I would hope that we were going to have some kind of mitigation on the dirt. There's going to be noise issues, obviously, from the construction equipment going. So if you can limit the hours to reasonable hours, that would be appreciated. As far as the traffic goes, I know they're going to put in a light, but there's a big blind corner where the people who are coming in and out of this project are going to be leaving from it. And currently, people go up and down Woodley like it's the 405. And I'm not sure that even with this traffic signal that that's going to mitigate that enough. And my biggest issue, again, is just about the crime that this is going to be engendering in this neighborhood. It's changing the nature. This project is changing the nature of this neighborhood. This is not, in my view, with this change to the R6 zone, it's not just single-family homes. This is a single-family neighborhood, and they're asking for a zone change just on this one parcel to make it an R6. And then we're gonna have multiple families coming in, and that's not what this is. This is not meant to be an apartment. This is a single-family zone, and I think it's going to change the nature of the neighborhood for the negative. So that's the reason why I'm opposed to it.
Thank you.
And I would say also this was not as unanimous as was described. There was a lot of people that have sent emails and have been opposed to this project. They're trying to make it seem like I'm the only one opposed to it, but I don't think that's an accurate. I don't think that's accurate as to what's happened. There were emails were sent to the file, so that's all I'm going to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Lorne Borstein.
Good afternoon. My name is Brad Rosenheim. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Borstein.
Is Mr. Borstein here?
Yes, he is here. Do you want him to speak first, or?
No. You guys just.
Oh, okay.
Be up there together.
My address is 21600 Oxnard Street in Woodland Hills, and I'm here today on behalf of Borstein Enterprises. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Glick for his very diligent work on this project over the past several months. This is a 10-acre site. As you can see in the aerial photo, to the immediate south of us is a truck yard, which is owned by Anheuser-Busch. There's multiple residential development to the west, and then single-family to the north and to the east of the subject property. Four primary concerns I'd like to, or comments I'd like to make today. First of all, the Borsteins and the neighbors have worked very closely to design the project that meets both the objectives of the neighborhood as well as the Borsteins. It's truly been a very positive, productive, and successful collaboration, and we'd like to thank the neighbors for their time and interest in their efforts, as well as their active support, along with the North Hills West Neighborhood Council. Secondly, we strongly support the appeal filed by Mrs. Francisco on behalf of many of the neighbors. She's absolutely correct that the elimination of the City Planning Commission conditions B4, B2, and B5, D2 will lead to a more attractive and uniform project appearance from the primary exterior street frontages. Thirdly, Mr. Larson's appeal in whole does allow us to ask for a couple of very minor but significant clarifications in some of the language, and I think you may have that before you. Site plan review condition B4A, we would simply like to add at the end of that, replacing 3 foot to 18 inches in facade variation. It's a minor alteration, and I believe there's an agreement by all parties that that's appropriate. And then condition 5B, we would like to clarify how the setback is measured, and we would add at the end of that condition, as measured from Chase property line to the furthest of the home's north-facing walls. This just defines how it's supposed to be measured. Finally, to Mr. Larson's appeal, each of his reasons for the appeal are unfounded and entirely unsubstantiated. The proposed zone change and general plan amendment has gone through an exhaustive staff review, with all required findings having been made in great details. The zone change is absolutely compatible with that of the neighborhood and consistent with the community. In spite of his protestation, the homes are all single-family homes on single-family lots. They are in no way, in any way, shape, or form, de facto multiple residential properties. We have performed exhaustive traffic, noise, and air quality analysis. There are significant conditions of approval in the mitigated negative declaration that goes along with this approval, and there are no significant impacts as a result. Finally, as demonstrated by the support of the Neighborhood Council and the North Hills West neighborhood, the community and the North Hills West Neighborhood Council, the development of the homes on the property as proposed is absolutely consistent with the community and an asset. We therefore respectfully request that you approve Ms. Francisco's appeal, deny Mr. Larson's appeal, and modify conditions B4A and B5B as requested. Thank you.
Thank you. Have anything? Good. All right. We have a few more speakers. We have Anita Goldman.
Good afternoon, Councilman. My name is Anita Goldbaum. My request to the Plum Committee is to return the wall heights and the design on both Woodley Avenue and Chase Streets to the original as submitted by Borstein Development for a safe and common-sensible development. Borstein Development has been open, honest, and transparent with all the residents in the community. Regarding the wall heights on both Woodley Avenue and Chase Street, we request conditions B4 and C2 and B5, C3 that were added by the City Planning Commission be deleted from their action and be returned to the original plan. Woodley should be retaining an 8-foot solid block wall and Chase a 6.5-foot solid block wall, and the landscaping continuity as in the original plan. The request is made in view of the fact that there are safety, privacy, noise mitigation, and visual attractiveness issues that are significant and vital for a safe and responsible building development. Thank you.
Thank you. Joseph Radwan.
Good afternoon. The City Planning Commission approved most of the project, exception to the wall height on both Woodley and Chase. And I do not agree with the Commission decision. I would like to ask that this condition be deleted and the original wall height and type on Woodley Avenue remain 8 feet, solid block wall, and Chase Street to be 6 feet 6 inches, the same solid block wall, and that the original landscape exterior design are retained. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's Candido Juvencio.
Good afternoon. While the City Planning Commission approved the Woodley Chase project, they added 2 conditions that I do not approve of as follows. Change in wall heights and type of both Woodley Avenue and Chase Street as indicated on page C-2 and C-3. I am requesting that their action be reversed and returned to the original design. Woodley Avenue, 8 feet solid block wall, and Chase Street, 6 feet 6 inches solid block wall, and the well-designed uniform landscape design remain as in the original plan. Thank you.
Mr. Gary Fortis.
Gary Fordyce, North Hills West Neighborhood Council member, speaking as an individual. I support this project as originally approved by the community and the Neighborhood Council. I further agree and support Deborah Francisco's appeal. I am opposed to the Planning Commission conditions to lower the wall height. The original plan presented consistent uniformity in design and an attractive streetscape complying with the concerns of the neighborhood. The original wall height further mitigates noise, safety, privacy, benefiting the community as well as the new homeowners. Mr. Borstein is an amazing developer. Never before has a developer worked so hard to engage and accommodate a community's concerns and desires. The original plans and wall heights are what we liked and approved. I ask only that you, honorable council members, do the same. Thank you.
We have Mr. Wayne.
All right. I think that the appeal should be sustained, particularly on these walls. High walls, long fences make good neighbors. So I think on that basis, especially the overdensification happening everywhere in Woodley, and this is CD12, a lot of development happening there. I think you have to be very critical of understanding the neighbors' desires in these cases, especially with these quality of life issues. So please support these appeals, but let the project go forward as modified with the suggestions and conditions in the appeals. So CD12, will continue to be way over densified. There's nothing we can do about that, but at least give this small smidgen of honor to these long-term residents. Thank you.
Councilmember, any questions for staff?
No questions for staff, but just some comments and evaluations and several recommendations. First and foremost, I want to thank Bill Larson, not necessarily on his appeal, but all his work. We've worked together for many years on a lot of different issues, and particularly on the last item you spoke about as well. And I appreciate everything you continue to do in the community and for the city of Los Angeles. Truly appreciate it. I do want to thank Deborah and Anita and Joseph, Candido and Gary for coming up and stepping up as well and looking at some of these issues and concerns that was approved and with some modifications. This property is fascinating. It has been a blighted property in the community for years, as essentially a place just to park trucks. And it's abuts a beautiful and wonderful neighborhood that needs to be protected. A few years ago, we had an applicant come in for the Restaurant Depot property. And I went and toured Restaurant Depot and thought, what a phenomenal project. You could actually argue, because there's commercial across the street, large commercial across the street, that it made sense. And so we looked at that, and I went and toured their facility and what they were doing to be providers to restaurants in our local community. And the services they offer, the goods they offer, the prices they offer were phenomenal. They needed to expand. They needed freeway accessibility, and I thought it made great sense and said, let me work with you in the community. The community was absolutely opposed to it. Homeowner Association, which wasn't really formed at that point to where it's gone today, and I appreciate everything you've done. The HOA, the local neighbors, said it doesn't really work, but we know full well something will come along that we could probably support if it's reasonable, if it complements our community. And then these guys came along. lot of changes and updates from the time they walked in the door to where it is today. They really listened to the community, and you guys actually went out there fighting for the community on their behalf and working to say, let's make it, it's a good project, it's not a great project, let's make it a great project. Let's make it something we can live with. This is how projects should be done. This is an example of an applicant working with the community, working with the council office, and everybody having an open and honest collaborative discussion. And that's what's been done. And so Bill, appreciate your concern. You got to understand as well, I think you'd mentioned that, they're getting double what they should be getting, or much more density. In fact, under the RD6 now, they're getting 73 or so units on this. They could have gone with an RU, RS, or an R1, and it would have been about 132 units. With the claim that CD12 is getting more dense, it couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, that's one of the great things about the Northwest San Fernando Valley. It's just the opposite. In fact, we're the second largest geographically, the second largest district, and only, I think, because CD4 has Griffith Park. They have, we have the second largest park. That geographically, it is very comfortable and spread out with a good job housing balance with light industrial manufacturing, M-zone properties, a lot of great positive changes that are coming and embraced by the community. And this is what can happen when you turn a project down that I thought would have been reasonable at the beginning. The community said, we really don't want that in our neighborhood, but we'll have an open discussion should something else come knocking on our door. And lo and behold, a couple years later, that's what happened. And they've done a great job. And I want to compliment the applicants for having that open dialogue and being accessible, but really the community that spearheaded this. And therefore, on all of their recommendations, I would move that we grant the appeal in part, and that is on the first appeal from Deborah, that we grant it in part, and I have it all in writing, basically on the wall structure, and we'll submit this as well, unless you need me to read it in the record in its entirety.
I don't think you need to read it into record. I think you can submit it to the city clerk.
Okay, I'll just summarize it, and essentially to delete conditions B4, B2, and B5, D2, and then also approve the clarifications as requested by the applicant. Those are the appearance along Woodley Avenue and the appearance along Chase Street as well. And that's it. Okay. And so that would be my motion. And I also would like to highlight this project as an example of what can be done when everybody works together, that the neighborhood council, the HOA, the stakeholders, the local neighbors, all were willing to sit down and say, how can we make this better? How can we improve our community? By turning down another project just a couple of years ago that I thought was decent at first, but I always, I listened to the community and we turned it down. And so I really appreciate all the work that everybody's done and look forward to this project moving forward. Thank you so much.
And Councilman Englander asked Mr. Larson.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and deny that.
Deny that.
Yeah.
Okay.
With gratitude, though.
Okay. So it'll be a grant in part, denied in part, with modified site plan review conditions.
Correct.
All right, any discussion? Members? Hearing no opposition? That moves. Mr. Mejia, we have items 3 and 4, which we'd like to do on consent.
Sure. I'll still read them into the record, Councilman.
Yes, sure.
Item 3 is a zone change for a 9-condo unit project in CD7. Not sure if the councilman of the district would like to make a comment. And item 4, Councilman, again, this is a zone change for a proposed subdivision in CD6 for the development of 4 single-family homes.
All right. I move that we approve these items on consent.
Okay.
Need a second. I need a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. That item moves. Mr. Mejia, can you read item number 5?
Sure, Councilman. Item 5, Councilman, is a building line removal ordinance and zone change for the development of a small lot subdivision with 21 single-family dwellings on 21 separate lots, again also in CD7.
It's Tom Glick Day. Tom Glick, City Planning Department. How are you, Councilman? Again, this was a zone change, a building line removal. It was as it was read. Similar to the one I just testified on in Council District 12, this project has gone through a lot of community review and a lot of work between the applicant, the council office, and the community to get the project to where it is today, which is a 21-unit small lot subdivision with a zone change to TQ RD 1.5. But I wanted to emphasize that this project was consistent with the existing or the Sylmar Community Plan that was in effect at the time. The Sylmar Community Plan has now since been readopted as a new community plan, but at the time the applicant filed, it was under the old community plan, and the applicant was filing a zone change consistent with that plan. But what is the result of this was a lot of work by the community and the neighborhood council and the North Valley Area Planning Commission and the Planning Department and the council office to have a project where it is today. And I think it's been reworked in such a way that it is acceptable to all parties. It was acceptable to the North Valley Area Planning Commission. And I know the applicant wants to come up and speak and present a slight change to their project, so I'm going to let them speak, unless you have any questions for me.
Members, any questions for Sam?
Okay.
Spiegel Development. Thank you for taking this project under consideration. When we had the project approved, it was for 21 homes. We had neighborhood council support, we had planning commission support, we met with the community numerous times. We've adjusted this plan at least a half dozen times. After getting our approval, we had additional meetings and discussions with planning staff, with the council office and the community. And we have changed our plan, and I believe we've given you a copy, reducing the density from 21 to 20. And that is, after hearing everything from the community and the neighbors, having a vested interest in Sylmar for a very long time. And so we have heard them. We have lowered the density to 20. We've masked the density from the street with our changes. We have also masked the density when you look up the single driveway, the way we adjusted the entries to it. It fits within the community plan. You'll also find that our parking is approximately 4 times city code. Our minimum side yards are 5 feet per home, so at least 10 feet between the houses. We've also added a pedestrian ingress and egress out the back, which was something else that the council office and part of the community wanted. And this originally was under the low medium 1.5 to 2. I believe we're building to a density of less than RD3. Under the current zoning, it would be allowed to have a minimum of 35 houses. And our consultants are here if you have any other questions, and I thank you for your consideration.
Any discussion, members?
Councilman, my understanding is that a revised site plan map has been submitted to the city clerk, and that revised map will need to be adopted and part of the file. And I believe that the councilman of the district is in agreement with this.
So we have a motion on the floor? Second. Any discussion? Hearing no opposition, that's moved.
And with the adoption of the revised site plan map, that's submitted to the clerk.
Excellent. And we have on item 6 a request to continue until the 1st of September.
Yes, Council.
Do we need a motion there?
If you so move.
Second. All right. And I believe lastly we have a report from the planning department that we'll receive and file.
Yes.
And we have 2 general public comment cards. The first speaker is Doug Haynes.
Hi, my name is Doug Haynes. Thank you for your patience. I'm a member of the board of both the East Hollywood Neighborhood Council and the Hollywood Studio District Neighborhood Council, and I chair the planning committees for both. The reason I wanted to speak to you is about Airbnbs and the problems we're experiencing in Hollywood, in particular with large-scale Airbnbs. This is something that the City Council is going to be grappling with, and I hope I have more than just 1 minute. I want to focus mostly on the Sunset Gordon Apartments, which now have become basically the Sunset Gordon Hotel since January. In April, DBS issued an order to comply and stop the illegal hotel use. That order was ignored, and that was in April, excuse me. And then in July, DBS again issued a revised order to comply, and that's also been ignored. CIM did the same thing in New York, and they were fined $4.4 million for an illegal hotel use, taking away residential units. And they were fined, again, the $4.4 million. The LA fine is $367. And in the meantime, CIM is receiving $160,000 a month from Genosi, the Airbnb operator. So real quick, CIM issued an illegal detainer, an unlawful detainer against the Airbnb operator. I went to the hearing on this.
You got to close.
Okay. Real quick, the reason rents are going up so astronomically in Hollywood is because a lot of these residential projects are being converted to Airbnbs, and we need relief from that. So I hope that you consider that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wayne.
Okay. Good job chairing the meeting. So, Friday, we have the darkness of CD12 making its head, which is putting the new into a residential horse facility area, this new studio. And I keep seeing it coming back and forth, Shadow Hills, and today there were a lot of people complaining that it was on today's agenda in the city council chambers, but they didn't get a chance to really get more than a couple hours notice. So on Friday, Councilman Fuentes is in favor of taking this large studio and plunking it right in the middle of a horse ranch area. The city has been decimated. There's almost no equestrian areas left in the city. The only ones you have left are the border between Los Angeles City and Newhall, and that's that area. So on Friday, take the gutsy position and vote no on that project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This adjourns our Planning and Land Use Management Committee meeting. I need a motion to adjourn.
Sure.
Excellent.